Hey guys, it's Danny. Time for our first update on this orchid haul watch. And yeah, we kind of failed with this one. But what I wanted to tell you is that this orchid bloomed and this is the bloom, but we're gonna make a bit of a discussion out of today's video because I think it's important for you guys to know that when you purchase an orchid and you see the listing picture, there is a chance, which might be higher than you think, that the orchid will not look like what you see in the picture, and why that is and how to avoid it as much as possible if you want an orchid to look like the picture. So here we have the BLC Hua Yuan Beauty Hong. Right, so excuse the way it looks, it's a little worn down. We had thrips issues because of course we did, and then I sprayed her with insecticide, but the flower didn't take it very well. It has a lot of damage. Luckily, I also have a picture. So indeed it bloomed and it looked very nice and it was nicely fragrant for, 2 days. But I could clearly see that the flower does not look like the listing. The listing had a lot more white and I was really hoping that my orchid will look like that. And there are two possible reasons why this orchid looks different. P.S. I'm wearing gloves because this is covered in insecticide and it's gonna take a while for me to get used to the idea. I have some issues with insecticide, please excuse me. Hope you can understand. For a while, I'm gonna touch them with gloves. Right, so the first reason why orchids don't necessarily look like the listing picture, and the most common reason, is because they are not clones of the orchid you see in the picture. Now here's the funny thing that happens when you reproduce orchids through seed. From the same seed pod, you can have different looking resulting orchids because the seeds, even though they're brothers and sisters, let's say, they're not twins. So you can have multiple hybrids of the very same cross coming from the very same seed pod that will look just a little bit different between them. You can have some that look very similar between them, some that don't. And that's why sometimes in cultivation we have the hybrid name accompanied with a cultivar name. In this instance is Hong. So this cultivar might have a special trait that is desirable and other individuals might not have it, even though they're all brothers and sisters. So it is very common that what you see listed there is just a different looking individual out of the same seed pod, maybe even, that has certain traits which his brothers and sisters don't. So I'm pretty sure that the orchid that I have here has either no relation with the picture that I saw on the website, either it is just one of the seedlings that looks different. I don't know for a fact if this one was obtained through Mary cloning or meristem cloning from a different mother plant, or it's just obtained through seeds. So just so you know, there is a chance that the orchid you see in pictures will not look like the orchid you will receive. It happens a lot with cattleyas, maybe not so much with oncidiums. Did you notice? Oncidiums tend to kind of look very similar between them. Also with phalaenopsis it can happen a lot. Maybe with vandas as well. I'm sure there are some orchids that will be, let's say, more similar between them and others which will give birth to all sorts of colors. And the best example of different looking flowers coming from the seed pod is the Telumia. I have a Telumia in bloom right now, which you guys don't know. Let me show you her. Ta-da! This is Telumia Jarak Flyer Black Magic. Isn't she adorable? She has the most beautiful deep brown coloration. It's not really black. I wish it were, but it's hard to obtain black orchids, but it is very dark colored. Now, if we look at the tag, you will see that it says Telumia Jarak Flyer, and then Black Magic is the cultivar name. If you know Telumias, you know that there are so many Jarak Flyers, you won't even have enough fingers to count them. And they're all coming from the same seed pod, but they all look very different between them. That's why we have so many different looking like Telumias with kind of the same name, but a different cultivar name. So as far as my knowledge goes, as far as my understanding goes, Telumias are the most variable of orchids when it comes to seedlings looking different in between them. And in my experience, cattleyas are second. They are very variable as well. And third, I would say Phalaenopsis. With Oncidiums, I don't know if you have as much variation. I haven't witnessed it, but I don't know for sure. So that's how we can explain why your orchid will look a little bit different than the picture. That's reason number one, and the most common one in my opinion. Second reason could be environment. There are those orchids that simply look different depending on temperature, for example. And yet again, we have a Cattleya to talk about, the Hawaiian Splash Leia. In cooler conditions, the flower, in my opinion, looks better. It has more yellow, it's more splashy, let's say. And in warmer conditions, atypical for a Cattleya, right? It looks more purple. These types of orchids can actually be clones of an actual individual that looks in a certain way, but they display their color differently depending on the season or temperature. Sometimes maybe even on the products you use or care you provide, the pH of the potting medium, and so on and so forth. I'm not entirely sure to what degree, but there could be a difference there as well. So the second reason is just one of those orchids that just looks different depending on the season, but it's not very, very common. In that case, you could have the very nice surprise that your orchid will look just like the picture, but in a different season. Now, how do we avoid different looking orchids if that's what you want? If you want an orchid to look exactly like the picture, what should you look for? Well, it's not always 100% foolproof, but what you should look for are clones. And many times nurseries will specify if what you're buying is a clone of maybe an awarded specimen or something that it's hard to reproduce. For example, the black orchid, the Monnieri Millennium Magic, and also another black orchid, the Black Pearl, Catasetum Black Pearl, is something like that. I don't remember the name. Those are as black as you can get. Well, you cannot really replicate the same result by crossing the same two parents. That was a glitch. So the best way to replicate or reproduce that particular cultivar is through cloning. And nurseries will make sure most of the times to mention if what you're buying is a Mary clone. Usually that's how they say. So if you want something or a bigger chance of getting something that looks like the picture, try to look for nurseries or vendors who sell Mary clones. Typically they will say it. If they don't say it exactly, it's up to luck. Sometimes even clones might look a little different because it depends what orchid has been cloned. But there are some staple orchids that are always cloned, and the black ones, they're typically always cloned, so you will have a black orchid if the nursery or the vendor is legit, if they are reputable, and so on. But bottom line, just so you know, every time we buy orchids, it's a little bit of a mystery. It's a little bit of a roulette. Sometimes, even with Mary clones, you can have an orchid looking just different than what you expect because it has been cloned from a different orchid. It just happens. But in my opinion, even if it doesn't look like the picture, an orchid is still absolutely stunning. If you see the word Mary clone in the description of the orchid you want to buy, chances are it is cloned from an awarded individual or a named cultivar. For example, now I have doubts that what I bought is even supposed to look like the picture. I think that one is called Rainbow. This one is called Hong. So maybe I'll buy the Rainbow one day as well because it's a pretty popular hybrid at the moment on the market. But yeah, my flower does not look like the picture, sadly, but it's still absolutely beautiful, minus the thrips damage. Right, so that has been it for today's little show and tell, let's say. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this video will be useful to you. And yeah, if you have some other questions that I could talk about kind of real fast in a show and tell, let me know and I'll try to do so. Right, so that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.